of that, just so as we get a bit of warmth. Don't want too much warmth to this. Some detailing, because we've got the dark. Well, there is Brick Barn Farm, Chignall St James, on the outskirts of Chelmsford. Well, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Working under cover in the outside area of my studio, and really because it's raining, and I feel as if I'm you know, I'm out there within the landscape, and I'm working from a pencil sketch that I produced some weeks back, and this is going to be used on a course that I'm tutoring. It's just a 3-hour course locally, and I just want to run through the painting so that I can get, you know, an idea of the subject. It's a lovely little subject on the outskirts of Chelmsford City, and it's not really, it's only just down the road from my studio here in Gallywood. So let me produce the drawing and I'll lead you through the painting process. Well, there's the subject. It's actually Brick Barn Farm. We've got the main farmhouse that's out of picture. These are the connecting or adjacent barns, and they've actually all, I think, now being converted into a form of accommodation, really. That's the main brick one. I suppose that's where the farm got its name. That's the main old barn, and we've got the sunlight coming from the left, lighting up the front of the barns, but also punctuated by these lovely trees that that will enhance the overall feeling of sunlight. So I'm going to put the drawing down onto watercolour paper. Good. Well, I'm going to put the drawing down first, and it's fairly explanatory, really. It's quite a simple subject, in as much as we've got the barns, quite a large sky. So we'll start off. What I like to start off with is the distance area, that area there, and get the way that road turns in. And all I do is hold up the subject as if I'm looking at it, really, in out in the fields, and I'm going to start there. So that's where that road turns, and it actually comes towards us almost, and it turns there and it slopes right out of picture, so we can see the fact that it tapers and goes around the corner. Right on the edge here we have the barn that goes around the corner. Just about see a touch of that. Quite a tall barn. Just see the roof sloping there and the roof sloping there. We'll get this down fairly quick, and good job I have got this space, because it does work well. I can feel as if I'm outside, and yet I'm undercover working. You know, it just gives me a lovely feeling of connection with the landscape, I suppose, is the best way to explain it. Right, now that will only go to there before we have the lovely barn, which will stand about there. Let's say there. There we go. And then we have a little bit of the edge of the field there before we go. There's a track takes you up behind there, so that finishes there. That's the main barn, and it finishes there like that. It's quite a large roof to this barn, and that then runs back there like that, and just give the old roofs a little bit of bit of movement. And I'm actually not going to put in the building at the ends. I can just suggest a building there, but it's all about the brick barn itself. That's what I'm trying to depict. Yeah, that'll do us. That's fine as a drawing. And then we've got the bank area that comes like that. We then have a building that stands. There's a bit of distant tree work there. We then have a building that stands there. In actual fact, it's not quite as wide as that, so let's just do that. And that, quite a reasonable size. Don't want to be too, whoops, get that angle right. And put that up there with a chimney right in the centre. And that'll finish there. That thing comes out to there. And then holding this in is a lovely old tree, which I like to see in these subjects, these lovely old trees. We have a door there of some sort. We have a window. Actually, the door goes quite high. A window there, a window there, and a row of little windows there. I'm not counting them. We have a lovely barn opening there, slightly arched, but doesn't go too high up. So that may need to be made a bit smaller than that. We have these little windows there, although that one may not be seen. And then we have these lovely trees. They've not been there long, not sure what type of trees they are, but not really concerned about the type of trees. It will be purely the light that they create on the buildings that is most important to the overall look of this lovely scene. Windows, little idea of some stuff going on there, a little bit rough idea there, and oh yes, it's a little bit of grasses there, and that is all I need for my drawing. Well, I've wetted up the paints. I think you can see the water laying in there, and that's really making them soft. And all I'm going to do now, I'm going to damp the sky, and well, let's damp it all over. There we go. Now it's not going to dry very quick, purely because it's a damp old day here in the UK, but nice to see a bit of rain, and that's rain for a while, so it's always a nice thing to get when you're you know, for the crops and what have you. And but that's putting plenty of water at the top, not too much at the bottom. It'll tend to run down to the lower edges anyway. We will pull it into there because I want that to remain damp. And how do we treat this? Well, we need light. We need the fan of light. First thing I'm going to do is introduce, I'm not even going to mix this because there's a puddle of water there. I'm going to have a nice blue, and this is Prussian blue, a nice blue patch, and because it's damp, it's flowing. See the way it's running and flowing, and I'm just tapering off there, and that will probably be the largest of any of the or the darker of any of the clouds. And I'm going to create another cloud shape there, just to give that feeling there's clouds running through, and another small area there. And notice I'm rubbing at the paper, and look at the way it's diving down. Right, to give that light and a feeling of light, I'm going to dive in to the light red, and I'm banging that in as well. See the way I'm poking that in to the paper and allowing that to ride up. and flow down at the same time, if that makes sense. There we are. And I'm just going to go a little bit darker with that, just there, look at that. You see the way that floods in? That's what I like to do. Flood that in, create lovely warm clouds. There we are. Just allow that to seep in on its own. Don't overdo that. A little bit damp there. I'm going to get a run back, but I can't worry about that. And then I'm going to introduce a little cadmium lemon to that, because I want to create a fan of light coming in from this left hand side. So a little bit of red, a little bit of yellow, and try and warm the undersides of those clouds up. There we are. And I'm actually going to do the same with this here and make it a little bit more orangey brown. There we are, that's nice. There we are. And then all we do now is to just allow that to do its own thing. I'm just lifting off with a damp brush, but you can really see the power of that sky, the way it's pulling down the paper. Exactly what I wanted, exactly what is required. It's going to be very light here, and to enhance the light I'm going to put in just a touch of raw sienna, that yellowy colour there, and a touch there just to make it look right. There we are. And that will help give that impression of light in the background. Okay, now I can carry on with the rest of the subject, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to use these three colours to give this road a little bit of life. A bit of red in there, that's better. There we are. So the red is, let's add a little bit of yellow in that. There we go. Pulling that forward. So there's a little bit of raw sienna in there. Then I'm adding a bit of light red as it comes nearer to us. A little bit more light red in the road, and I'm rubbing the paper, try and get texture within that foreground. And I'm just going to put a spot of yellow in there. So I'm just dabbing in and pulling that paint in, because I want to get a feeling of light on this. I want plenty of colour to this landscape. See the way that's really softening now. It's really laying back into the paper. Now the roof of the old barn will be just light red, and it will be of a reasonable strength. So let's just see what we can do. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so the light red is going in like that, and that is the sunlit part of the barn. It's actually the roof, nice tiled roof. And to enhance that, I'm going to add alizarin crimson, because I want that to really show up. There we are. And I'm just touching into the sky just before it dries. Look at that. That's lovely, isn't it? I love the way it's grown up there into the sky. Not got a problem with that. Now, the barn itself, just purely raw sienna. The sunlit side, and you watch, I'm going to damp that, paint around the windows, but then I'm going to bring some of that red down into it. See the way it's flooding down into it? And this way we're getting that soft sort of frontage. So the way it's flooding down, creating variety of tone and colour. So I'm doing all the sunlit side first, so it'll look as if the sunlight comes from the right in the end, but of course it doesn't. Then into that alizarin crimson, I'm going to add what am I going to add? Oh, the Prussian blue again, because this will give me the colour of the roof, which is grey tile, like that. And that will be lighter, a lighter colour than the barn itself. So that runs across there like that and down like that. Okay, so that's a fairly light colour. Just pull that back. There we are. Oh well, leave it. Right, now the barn itself, the sunlit colour of the barn has a little bit more light in, so I'm adding a bit more red to that. So that's going to be a tone or two light. I don't want them to merge together. I ought to be painting a rainy day really, I suppose. But howsoever, this was the way it was, plenty of light colour. There we are, that's grown up as well into the sky. See the way it's growing up into the sky? If you've got your board at a bit of an angle, it shouldn't hurt the overall, shouldn't affect the overall outcome. Now I've added, to the alizarin, I've added a little bit of the Prussian blue and a little bit of the light red. And I'm doing the sunlit side of this. Let's just add a little more light red to that, just so as we get a bit of warmth. Don't want too much warmth to this, because it's I'm not really wanting that to be too warm at this stage. There we are. And then I'm going somewhat lighter with the bit more red in there, a bit more light red, with this frontage, which is actually the front of the barn, of the building there. Then we have the side of that building, and that is going to be Windsor blue and Indian red. Get a nice deep dark sort of well, it is a it is a building that's been treated with let's just get the windows in somewhere there. There we go. It has been treated with a treatment, so for obvious reason it's going to be quite dark, although it's in the sunlight. I think there's 3 windows there, but anyway, there's 3 now. And that then comes along like that. It has got sun on it, so we'll have to watch with this is not too dark. We'll see how we go. Anyway, sweep it across, and then there's another window there somewhere. Anyway, we'll sort that out shortly. Then there's a door, then another window there. I want to show you how to loosen up your paintings. This is why I'm showing you this very loose treatment, because I think it's vital that you know, when you're learning to get this loose treatment put down onto your paper. Just want to add colour to that. Now it is that grey sort of brick stone look, but it's much darker, so I'm going to use burnt umber now with the light red, with just a touch of the Windsor blue, not too much, otherwise it'll go green. There we are. So that's that burnt umber. So although it's dark, it still has a brick-like or a stone-like feel. There we are. I'm treating this very, very simply. We're going to tidy up edges at a later date. Well, not a later date, later today. Now, running up the barn there like that, down to there and straight down that corner. And immediately we begin to get a film of sunlight hitting that, that front edge, which is exactly what we're looking to achieve, really. and then we get the corner comes down like that. See, if you use large brushes, you can't be fussy. You have to be impressionist. And then for the side of that building, I'm adding Windsor blue and Indian red again into that same mix. Not going to affect it to any great degree. And then we have the dark end of that there that heads down there, down there. So this is the shadow side. I want to show you how quick you can paint these. You know, I'm just assuming, you know, I'm just thinking, well, supposing I'm on the bit more blue going in now, because we're going back further, because I'm going to put the side of that barn in too, like that, and the overhang over the roof, like that, and just drop that down gently with the point of the brush, you know, and then to a lesser extent the end of that build there. And all of a sudden we're beginning to build up a feeling of buildings that have light on them. That's what we're looking to achieve, sunlight. There we go. Let's just go back a bit further with that. Good. Let's see how boom, 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 boom. Oh, hang on. Just before it dries, let me get in the... we just about see the roof of that. I think we probably would. There we are. Perfect. Just allow that to dry. Now this same brush is going to be used for these windows, and I've got Prussian blue on there. They've got black surrounds, but the glazing is light. So that's the way I'm treating those. Then I'm going to have a window there, window there, window there. There's a glazed area at the top of that. It's a window there. There's a window there. I'll attend to that. Because I never left white paper, I'm going to put it all in dark. Right, so that's that. Let's clean that brush. So those windows are in. Now I'm going to paint this building here, and it's purely light red with a bit of the blue in to make it lay back. So it's going to sit back nicely. Let's add a bit more blue. It's going to sit back nicely within the landscape behind this the main building. Lovely old barn. So we sneak that down there. I'm going to put the chimney on at the same time. There we are, chimney's on. And catching the roof area there. And then I'm going to tuck back into the corner of the barn. And we come down the side. And it sort of holds that corner in. Well, it does, yeah. Like that. And then gradually we soften that now and pull that in like that. That gradually gets lost in the background. Now I've cleaned the brush, and I'm going to use cadmium yellow to start painting in this lovely warm tone of green. And what I do to one side of the road, I'm going to do to the other, as you can see. So it's cadmium yellow, goes into that, quite uneven, and that goes into there. Then I'm going to use lemon yellow, because that will enhance that green effect. It doesn't matter if it wipes up into, get a bit of running from the other colours, I'm not worried about that. Bit more cadmium lemon like that, into there. That's it. And as we come forward, just lift that off. Now the brush is running out of paint. And as we come forward, I'm banging in some red. Bit of red there. That red has gone in nicely. A bit of light red, really. Try and get that earthy effect here and there. And that area is very, very light raw sienna. There we are, like that. And that's a bit sort of spiky grasses there, but we'll deal with that later if we need to. Now as we go away into the distance, just add a little bit of blue to that, because I don't want that to show up too strong as we go around the corner. Right there. And that'll blend with that. There we are. Look at that. See the way it's blended that nicely? Gives a nice feel of going around the corner. And then I'm using Windsor Blue, very weak, to, well, not too weak, to edge up the corner of that roof there. Look, see that? I'm just putting that in. And I'm going to leave a bit of light at the bottom. Don't want that to be too, yeah, don't want that to be joined up, I don't think. I'll make my mind up shortly, but I don't think I want it joining up. In actual fact, I want it joining up there, but not there. Oh well, there you go. Nice bit of light. Okay, well here we go now with the large tree. I like these trees, love them. And all you do for that large tree is plenty of Prussian blue. Could use Windsor, I would say that. Windsor blue, Prussian blue. And I'm going to put in burnt umber. We've used that before. And that gives us a nice green. I'm starting off with cadmium though, because I don't want it to be too dark. And I'm using the point of the brush, just dabbing, because I know it was quite open, this tree at the top. Now that's the way I want to treat it, if I can. So plenty of open patches. I'm not actually, you know, I'm not depicting any particular leaf shapes, but obviously it is a depiction of a leafy tree. A little bit clumpier there. And then it gets more solid in this lower area, but not too solid. There we are, a bit more blue, and now I'm adding Indian red, because that'll make it darker. And then I have, oh, that branch, funny enough, sprays out. There's another one there, actually. And then it tucks back in, but then it goes again. Like that. Now, more red, more blue, really give it a warm punch. See that warmth, see how dark that goes when you give it a warm punch. Drop it in here and there so it just doesn't go from green to a warm tone. There we are. And that then is quite a strong tone, that. And it actually runs over that building. It's quite a large tree. I'm going to put a bit more at the top there, just to give that a feeling of a bit more height. There we are. And then that branch overhanging just a little more, like that. Right, now we go in there. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to add cadmium yellow to that. All of a sudden, give it a splash of green, because that quite likely could come into a bit of sunlight there, and then it overhangs there and more or less lays behind the grasses that stand up. And the same like the way I'm producing that, an edge that's uneven, just like grasses standing up. So I've got the lovely little bright area there. Then I'm going back in with the really dark again. to produce the finishing underside, just like that. And then we can then show field of soft grasses standing up. And that then completes that tree on the right hand side. Now you obviously notice that I dropped in some paint there. Am I worried? I suppose I should be, but I'll tell you something, I'm not going to be worried, because I'm more concerned in painting these trees first. Just let it do its own thing. Let's not get distracted. Right, into that Windsor blue and Indian red. Let's just add a bit more. I'm putting cadmium yellow, and I'm painting these lovely old trees. Now they're a bit more solid, but they are extremely dark. But of course you may be able to see the windows and things going on behind them. There's a little bit more green in them. A bit more green going in, a bit more yellow. Create a slightly greener field, but albeit very, very dark. And just watch the height of these, because it's important we don't go too high with them, but and one or two little gaps just indicate that we can see them windows in the background, which are there. There we are. Now I'm really going to pack a punch to counteract that by adding Indian red and Windsor blue, and that there again brings us back to this lovely rich dark colour, which is there like that. Isn't that lovely to paint a summer scene, which it is, but as a sunny scene when in actual fact you're in the cover but it's raining. There's that one there. There we go. And then there's that one there. And it's just a matter of forming them up into a shape that suits the landscape and suits the trees that are actually there, really. And then they just go down like that. Look at that. And there's another little blob that's all of a sudden raised its ugly head. Right, let's not worry about that. Let's just lift away a bit of paint there, and let's just lift off that blob, because, you know, there we are. Good. So that's that stage. Well, if you would like to make a small contribution to the running of my channel, then all you need to do at the bottom of your screen, click on the thanks. You then slide the slider along to the amount, as little or as much as you wish, and click buy and send. You then fill in your details and you're done. I thank you very much in advance. Now I'm going to do the little touches, little bits and pieces that make all the difference. And I'm using Indian red with the Prussian and the burnt umber. Right, now I'm using the Prussian blue to start with, more in the mix and not too strong, because I want to show up the shadow area on that roof there, because the sun is coming across, that be shadowed like that. I also want to show up chimney that straddles that roof line, and I know it's very, very dark, but all will be revealed. And I think we have 1 window, 2 windows, 3, 1, 2, 3, and I think we have the same there, and then I think we have a door in the middle there and a door there, something to that effect. Then of course you have another shadow there, because that's at the same angle, similar angle to that. Bring that nice and high up, and a small shadow down that side, and then a little bit more water on the brush to paint in the shadow that actually comes underneath there like that. And all of a sudden, what have we got? We've got a lovely film of sunlight onto that building in the distance. It's the way you do it. It's quite as simple as that, really. Okay, right, now more red. Take some paint off of the brush when you're doing this, because we're looking for a little bit of detailing. Not too much, a little bit in the roof there, like that, a little bit along the top, because this helps to line up the top of that roof, and it helps to eliminate where you have the run. And of course there's areas there that will be dark, and then of course there's a little bit of hinting at the pointing between each ridge tile, although we won't see that to any great degree. And then, oh, this is a good area where I think they're pan tiles actually there, so it's quite a rough roof line, so I'm trying to give that impression of pan tiles, see that? And then I'm cleaning the brush and picking up just a little bit of light red onto that brush. Let me just show you a little bit of light red there, but not too much, and not having too much on the brush, and I'm streaking down like that, just to give a sense that we do have tiles on the roof. A bit more in that top right hand corner, not as much in the left hand corner. Go, look at that, lovely aged feel to it. Then we go back in with this very dark colour again, just as a pointer to actually show up a little bit of detailing there on the overhang there, and also we have some detailing because we've got the dark wooden surround to that window. It's the old barn window, I think, but it is a dark wooden surround, like two main doors really, nothing too fussy. And then we have the dark door there, put in a slightly different colour, and that same dark colour is used just to, I've got a feeling that the door surrounds are completely black, so I've gone in plus the window surround. That window you can't see greatly, this window just pull that in like that, and that one there like that. That's good. And where that sits, notice I'm just putting some, oops, a bit too heavy, putting some little bits there, just so that the building sits on the ground. There you go. Okay, so I was using my rigger for that. Now I'm going to go back in with this number 4 mop. So I started off with the number 45 Pro Art, then I used the number 5 rigger, Pro Art. Now I'm using a Dale Rowney synthetic mop that points well. This is going to be my shadow work, and the shadows are going to be, well, I'm going to use the Prussian blue. I'm going to mix into that part of the palette. That's Prussian blue, and believe it or not, Indian red. But this time I'm not adding any other colour to that. So it's Prussian blue, Indian red, a bit more blue in the mix. Quite a strong mix, but I've just got to watch. I don't want to be too strong, so let's just add some water to that. Yeah, I think that probably does it. Well, let's test it. Let's produce the shadow on that gable end there. And of course, because we're working on in watercolour, the actual colour will be affected by the colour that you're painting on underneath, because it's transparent. So whatever you have underneath will affect the colour that this is laying on. So that goes like that. We then have a shadow that sweeps under that there, right the way behind the trees. Look at that. See how that really brings that into sunlight. Now we have like a shadow on the underside and down the left hand side there, down the left hand side of that window, and in the reveal, because this has got a window reveal like that. Then we have another shadow running there. Let's add a bit more colour to that. This is more blue now. It's an overhang shadow like that. There we go. Good. Now, I'm really getting excited now, because I'm going to use this shadow here for sense of something going on out of picture. Could be a tree, a little bit of detail, and then I'm going to soften that with a damp brush so we doesn't get too complicated. That just fills in that edge there. These old barns do not have to be perfectly upright, which in this case is an advantage really. Right, now I'm adding a little bit more red to that, a little bit more water. There we are. And this is going to be my casting shadow from that building there. Give it a bit of length. The casting shadow that runs down there from that building, which is not as long, and also make it a bit uneven. It's a bit of a depth like that. Oh, there is shadow down across the top, down the left hand side of those windows too, just to affect those. And yep, right, we do have a shadow from that tree. It's running down there. We'll have a little bit of a shadow on top of there, and a little bit of shadow on top of there. Don't think it was actually there, but I'm putting it in to cover me dots up, cover me little problems up. There we are, and another little feeling there. That's good. Now, out of picture. Oh, hang on, before we start. See this? How it ran up? Well, I'm going to use that because I'm going to use that as the thickness of the grasses that are in shadow. See how I've integrated that? And that then runs along there like that. Yep, and that then runs along like that. There is just a little bit of this that you can see there. Now this side, I'm going to depict what I would say is a tree out of picture. But of course it's not there. But who cares? I'm going to pull a shadow down here that runs across like that, and there will be some spiky bits because it's not that clean there. Okay, and it's going to run up the bank this side too. That may look a bit funny, and it is a bit funny really. And then I'm going to show up some darker grasses that stand up on that side because of that. And then joining them up will be a bit more Indian red into that mix. Not too much, just to give it a warm feel. And then that then pulls across the foreground. Look at that. And if you can do that in your with your colours, you will then just soften it a little so it's not quite as harsh on that side. And then there's a little bit of shadow there, a little bit of shadow there. Look at that. A little bit of shadow down there. Go. A bit more shadow there. That's it. That's solved that. And then, of course, we draw the line into the subject, just as if there's sort of like road markings of some sort that pull the eye in, just like, you know, where I put my crop markings in. Well, that's what I'm trying to do there. Just rub those out so we lose them. Oh, and there's some little grasses standing up there too. So that's also a useful thing to indicate. Well, we've got to be pretty near it now. Maybe the odd finishing touch. Well, just before we take the surround away and see exactly what we've got, I'm just going to go in with the odd little finishing touch, and that will, I'm going to use burnt umber this time for that, and I'm going to use the rigger. So we're using burnt umber with Windsor blue. So I've not used many different colours, if you notice, on this one, which just goes to show that it's not the colour you're using, it's the tone of that colour. Now I'm going to get dark brown with this, because that's the colour that I'm looking for, and not too much moisture on the brush. There we are. So I'm taking the brush is full with paint, but then I'm removing all the surplus paint. And right, I just want to show just a little bit more of the jagged edge that we've got along that road there. I want to show a touch of that jagged edge there. Not too much, but just some little odd little bits and pieces. That's still wet, which is a big advantage when you're painting this sort of thing in. And I want to show the bank too. So I'm using some brush strokes that sort of like head down. That's it, that's it, that's the way. There we go. And of course it's quite a textured little bank there. So, you know, there's things going on just coming out of the dark area. And there's another little clump there. You know, what are they? I don't know. Grasses? Well, does it really matter? It gives interest to that shadow area. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to go in just along the edge there. Am I doing things for the sake of it? Let's hope not, because that I do not want to do. The odd little branch showing up in between the openings there, perhaps may be an advantage, but overall. And then we go in with more blue, in fact quite a lot of blue, because I want to depict some birds. We've got a large sky that needs birds. And I would suggest, now this is where we don't need too much on the brush either. Because the sky is very light, the birds will be extremely dark. And there's one, like that. There's the other, another one there. There's a little dot there, but I think I'll leave that. We do have, right, let's just have a cluster just running there like that. See the way that one's diving? So don't make them all the same angle, because quite often they're not. There we are. 3, 2 there. So let's give this another 1, 2, 3. Well, so that, apart from this chimney, that's the only thing that I'm a bit concerned about. I'm going to soften that. It's a little too dark, a little too in the face, so I'm just damping that and softening that and bringing that in to allow that to create a shadow. There we are. But apart from that, as far as I can see, everything is pretty much done with that particular painting. I'm now going to take the surround away. Now, as you can see, I've pulled back, I've taken the surround away, so it sort of like gives it a mount really, and I'm just going to sign in dark coloured paint, like a brown paint, with the paint I've used, burnt umber, and just check that's dry. I think that's dry. So let's sign it here in my normal signature, which I recommend that you all do. Doesn't matter how good or bad you feel your work is, I do ask everyone to sign their work, purely because who knows, you know, some of the originals of these famous artists are very highly sought after. And just before I finish, has anyone spotted that there's no shadow, and I'm going to put it in, that actually runs from that barn onto this roof? It's not going to be quite as dark, but it runs like that up there. Not going to be quite as dark as that. So it runs up there like that, across to there, and of course, because it runs like that, some of that is going to be in shadow and on the corner of that there. So I think that probably fits that bill quite nicely. It just sort of gives that, just makes certain it's all covered, because if it's in shadow, it's in shadow. There we go. And that just runs across the top of the roof. There you have it. So that's a brick barn here in Essex, and anyone that's a little concerned that that we have a problem with these little dots there, well, to me those two don't really make any difference, but this one, all you do, use a damp brush, lift away like that, and then use a rigger to pick up some light green paint and then paint into that to create, and that just masks that area, that blob there, like that. A little bit of green paint there, a little bit of green paint there, and just take that up like that. There we are, and that is the way I would mask any little problem let's put a cluster along there, like that. There we are. See the way that all of a sudden, let's be just a little darker there. It actually gets rid of that. Don't you think it gives it atmosphere too? You know, you make it up as you go along, really. You know, this is what art is all about. I'm putting some more of these in here, just on the outskirts of the picture. It's a dark area. There you go. And I'm going to leave it at that. Well, there you have the finished painting. As you can see, it's a very soft wet into wet sky, soft distance, not too much colour. Then as we come to the barns, there's more detail and more interest, and then we've swept across the foreground. Obviously we've got that dark tree there. We've swept across the foreground with a lovely shadow. Could be a cloud shadow, quite often you get those sweeping across the landscape. And with these dark trees, they really throw up the light on mainly that one, but also the very dark buildings as well. And I think overall it's come up pretty well.